Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's Monday, it's 9 o'clock. It's time for a 5x5. Now, this is where I take 5 subjects related to magic. I spend 5 minutes talking about each subject, and then I move on to the next subject. It's always quick, it's always snappy. You never know what you're going to get. Well, today you do know what you're going to get, because today we're going to be diving into something that's bound to get people talking. We're looking at 5 of the biggest scandals in magic history. Now, magic has always been an art wrapped up in secrets and mystery and deception. That's part of the appeal. But when secrets are exposed, when credit isn't given, or when the ethics of our industry are called into question, things can get messy. These scandals have shaped the way that magicians view the art, and in some cases, the way the public sees us too. And to be clear, I'm not sitting here pointing fingers without taking responsibility myself. One of the scandals that we're going to be talking about is my own. Actually, technically 2, but definitely 1. I've made mistakes in the past, and I'm going to be completely and honestly open about that, because you can't do a list like this without including red. And for some reason, over the last year, a lot of people have been asking me about red. Maybe they're new into magic and they don't really know what went on. So with that being said, let's get into the 5 biggest scandals in magic history. Okay, so at number 5, we have the Masked Magician with the Exposure Wars. Number 5 is the Masked Magician. Back in the 1990s, Fox aired a series of specials called Breaking the Magician's Code. Magic's biggest secret finally revealed. And the concept was simple. A silent performer in a silver mask, a black and silver mask, would perform a big illusion and then immediately show the method behind it. To lay audiences, this was jaw-dropping TV. People had never seen anything like it before. Millions tuned in, but to magicians, this was nothing short of betrayal. Now, it ran for many, many seasons, and a lot of people were trying to guess who the performer was behind the mask, because everybody knew it had to be somebody who was magically trained. Well, the performer behind the mask eventually was revealed to be Val Valentino. He took illusions that had been closely guarded for decades, and effects that many working pros had built their reputations and their livelihood on, and he laid them bare for the entire world. Now, before we talk about his reasons behind this, magicians were furious, dealers were furious, and it wasn't just old illusions. He exposed material that was being used, being sold, still being performed, still actively used in shows around the world. And as the series went on, he moved away. He continued to do the bigger illusions, but he also then started exposing close-up tricks as well. And this was really before the internet. This was really before the the YouTube explosion. Now we think about YouTube and we think about exposure videos all the time, but really nothing had been done on such a scale before this. Now here's the thing, and this is what's important. The Masked Magician specials didn't destroy magic. In fact, you could argue that they forced magicians to become more creative, to adapt, to make their methods smarter and their presentation stronger. But at the time, it felt like the biggest scandal our community had ever seen. Now, Val Valentino would go on to say that's why he did it. He did it because he was trying to force the industry to become more creative, not rely on age-old techniques from decades and decades and decades ago, and kind of push forward. In reality, I'm sure it had nothing at all to do with the big-ass massive paycheck that you would have been paid for doing it. But here's the thing, the debate it sparked about what counts as exposure and what doesn't, what counts as education and what counts as crossing the line, still continues to this day. Some people say he brought attention to magic. Others saying he says that he damaged the art forever. Now, I'll let you decide which side that you're on, but one thing's for sure, Val Valentino became the most hated man in magic overnight, and the exposure wars he started really still echo through the industry right now. But, I've talked about exposure on this channel before. I don't really see much of a problem, because the bottom line is, look, we could debate this back and forth forever, but I know professional magicians that got into magic because of watching those specials on TV. They fell in love with magic because of learning the method behind it. Now, the big question is, do people think that magic is real? Because if people think that magic is real and then they're watching stuff like this, they're going to go, oh, it's not real, it's going to disillusion them. But right now, and magic is more popular now than ever before, but it's always been popular. There's always a spike at one point or another. Right now, magic's ridiculously popular, and there's a lot of exposure out there. If you want to, as a layperson, you could go on ChatGPT, you could go on AI, you could go on YouTube, and you can find out the answer to pretty much anything with very little minimal research. And yet people are still booking magicians, people are still doing shows, people are still going out there and killing it. Why is the reason? Because I think that exposure doesn't harm magic as much as we all think it does. I think that in some ways it can help it, but that's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to talk about the scandals in magic. In all honesty, one of the biggest scandals in magic was the masked magician. Okay, number 4, Uri Geller versus James Randi in court. So number 4 is the long-running battle between Uri Geller and James Randi. So, Uri Geller burst onto the scenes in 1970s and made the bold claim to have psychic powers. He bent spoons, stopped watches, and performed demonstrations that he insisted was a result of genuine supernatural abilities. To the public, he was fascinating. To magicians, he was controversial because many could see the methods with the same sleight of hand and misdirection that all magicians use all over the world. But he wasn't portraying himself as a magician. He was portraying himself as being able to do this stuff for real. And he was an incredible publicist. He would be able, and still does to this day, to be perfectly honest, to be able to get attention constantly. I remember, being at home, living with my parents, growing up and seeing this guy on TV, and he would be telling everybody that their spoons would bend in their drawers, and people would then be coming on radio stations and TV going, yes, my spoon is bent in my drawer. Stuff like this would be happening all the time. He would be taking responsibility for every outcome. If England won a World Cup game, for example, he would say, yes, he was the person that did that. He used his psychic powers to make sure that happened. If they didn't win, he would be the person doing that as well. He would make bold claims and bold predictions, and some of them would come off, some of them wouldn't, but the general public at least would only remember the ones that came off. Now, great publicist. Enter James Randi. James Randi is a magician, or was, rest in peace, a magician turned professional skeptic. Randi made it his mission to expose Uri Geller, to show that what he was doing was trickery and not paranormal power. He went on TV, he wrote books, he gave interviews, and he pulled no punches. Now, Geller fought back not just in the media, but in the courts. In the early 1990s, he filed a defamation lawsuit against in the United States against Randi and the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. He claimed their attacks had damaged his reputation. Now, the case dragged on. It ate up time, it ate up money and resources, and here's the kicker. The CSICOP, I think I got that right, argued that the lawsuit was frivolous. They filed for sanctions, essentially saying Geller was abusing the courts to silence critics. Ultimately, Randi survived the legal battles, but the whole affair was messy, expensive, and bitter. The scandal wasn't just about two men who hated each other, it was about the role of magicians in society. Should magicians call out performers who claim psychic powers? Is it our duty to protect the public from being misled? Or should we let audiences believe what they want to believe? Because honestly, I talked earlier on about, do people believe that magic's real? I have seen many, many situations where the general public do indeed feel that magic is real. They feel that magic is real, especially when they're seeing demonstrations of mentalism. I go out and I gig and I watch somebody like Matt Cluley, who has no psychic powers whatsoever and will convince somebody he has the ability to influence them with nothing more than an electronic dice and a thumper. And that's the thing that you need to understand. People sometimes, they want to believe. So should we as magicians, interject and say, well, actually, no, this is a lie? Because there's a lot of people that prey on the weak, prey on these. We talked about psychics. I did an interview with Pete Turner and Pigcake because they've just done a Kickstarter on, how to be psychic kind of set to give people apparently psychic powers. What should we do as a community? The question still divides magicians today. You know, there's people that have taken up Randi's mantle and are doing everything in their power to try and call these people out, and then there's others that are embracing it. One thing is certain: Geller versus Randi's courtroom wars were one of the ugliest and most public scandals our art has ever seen. Okay, so in third position, we have the death of Chung Ling Su. Number 3 is a story that combines deception, tragedy, and exposure all in one. The story of Chung Ling Su. So Chung Ling Su was billed as a mysterious Chinese conjurer in the 1900s. He spoke little English on stage, appeared exotic and mysterious, and became one of the most famous magicians in the world. You go to the Magic Circle, you're going to be able to see a lot of this in their museum and in the Devant Room. But here's the scandal. Chung Ling Su wasn't Chinese. He wasn't even Asian. He was actually an American named William Ellsworth Robinson and performed in Yellowface. Robinson had built his entire career on this persona. He never broke character in public. He gave interviews through interpreters. He lived as Chung Ling Su, and audiences totally believe the illusion. Don't forget, this is the early 1900s. This is a time where there is no internet. This is a time where there's not even news on the television or anything. This is a very difficult to get kind of information like that. If something was done like this today, it would be exposed within seconds, but not back then, right? So that's what you need to understand. Audiences believe the illusion, right? Then came the night of the 23rd of March, 1918, at the Wood Green Empire Theatre in London. Chung Ling Su performed the bullet catch, one of the most dangerous tricks in magic. Now, that night, something went wrong and a live round fired, and he was shot in the chest. And in that moment, for the first time ever, he broke character. He cried out in English, "Oh my God, something's happened. Quick, bring down the curtain." Those words shocked the audience every bit as much as the accident himself. Now, he died the next day, and with his death, the world learned the truth. Chung Ling Su was an invention. The real man was William Robinson. The scandal was twofold. First, the shocking accident that killed a superstar on stage, and second, the revelation that one of the world's most famous Chinese magicians wasn't Chinese at all. Now today we look back and we see clear cultural appropriation, but back then it was show business. Either way, Robinson's death exposed the illusion in the harshest way possible, and it remains one of the most infamous scandals in history, at least in my opinion. So, in second place, in second position, something that I was very much involved in, Michael Webber and the New Guy scandal, right? So, number 2, like I said, is a modern scandal that played out in forums and on blogs. The mystery of Michael Webber and New Guy. And unfortunately, it all started with me. So I released a trick. I was planning on releasing a trick, or I did release a trick. I released a trick called ED Seat. Now, ED Seat is, you can still get it, a way of using the binary system with receipts. So I had receipts designed by Steve Rowe, and it built the binary system into the receipts. So you could literally just have some receipts in your wallet, and you could take them out, and you can have somebody think of something off a receipt, and as soon as they've thought of it, you can tell them what they're thinking of, or you can have predicted it ahead of time. Now, the tutorial that came with it had routines from Javier Fuenmayer, Lloyd Barnes, Pete Turner, Mark Lemon, myself, Peter Nardi. The list went on and on. And it was a project that I'm very, very proud of. In fact, I have my ED Seats in my wallet, and I always have them with me, and it's something that I perform at the drop of a hat an awful lot. Now, during the process of this coming out, and during the process of it having come out, Murphy's Magic, who I released it with, were contacted by Michael Webber. And Michael Webber was very unhappy, and the reason he was unhappy was because he brought out a trick called New Age Receipts in a periodical that he had called Real Secrets from many, many years ago. So he had this thing called Real Secrets, where an issue went out every single month to people, and in there, one of the things he taught was called New Age Receipts, which were receipts with the binary system built into it. And it came with sort of one page of instruction of how to actually do the binary system with these receipts. And he contacted Murphy's and he suggested they should be pulled off the market. And I went back and forth with Michael via Murphy's, not actually directly, but via Murphy's. And my point was EDC should stand. And my reason behind it was a couple of reasons. One, Real Secrets magazine, or the Real Secrets periodical that you put out to people, you weren't actually ever allowed to tell people what was in there. You couldn't perform it. You had to sign like a thing to say that you wouldn't talk about what the material was in there. You couldn't perform it anywhere. You could never sell your copy. You can't find anything about Real Secrets in there anywhere. Now, this New Age Receipts also got published in an episode in a magazine in Genie as well, when he was first starting the Real Secrets magazine. In a slightly different way. I'm going back now. It doesn't really matter. But we went back and forth arguing about whether this should come out. And my point was, well, this comes with like 7 or 8 hours of tutorial. This is more than just a few receipts. This is, first of all, extra receipts. And on top of that, there's ways of doing it that's never been seen before. And we've got ways of combining it with phones. So you're not having to actually, all of the limitations behind the binary system were eliminated. And we went back and forth. And at the same time, as tends to happen with a lot of these scandals, a lot of stuff that happens to do with this sort of stuff, it spilt onto the Magic Cafe, and people were arguing back and forth on the Magic Cafe. And one user of the Magic Cafe that came on and started talking was a guy called New Guy. And New Guy had a posting history on the Magic Cafe that went on for years. He had a very long posting history talking about various different things. And a lot of the time, New Guy, when you look back at his posts, would be very pro Michael Weber. And any time there was a post that was maybe even slightly negative about Michael Weber, he would jump in. And then what happened, and we have to go back a little bit, in 2005 on the Magic Cafe, this same user account, New Guy, shared a routine called Triumph Photocopy. And the description was detailed with photos, and it carried the line, copyright New Guy 1985. And then fast forward to 2009, Michael Weber released a routine called Triumph Photocopy. It used the same basic prop, same structure, and the same name. So immediately, questions started flying, because what happened is this was never noticed, but then when the whole EDC drama came about, this was noticed that Michael Weber and New Guy were effectively the same person. And questions started answering, because this wasn't really about EDC at this point. This then became, has Michael Weber really been having a sock puppet account for like 15 years and using it to hype up his own products for 15 years? Was Michael Weber influenced by that forum post? Did he take the idea? Or, and this is where it gets really controversial, was Weber himself secretly posting as New Guy? Now, over the years, over the course of this thread on the cafe, which I think went to about 60 or 70 pages, different people have claimed different things. I think it's common knowledge that Weber was indeed New Guy, but some insist Weber was behind the scenes all along and it was just him. Others have come forward and said that multiple creators had access to this New Guy account at various times, and different people used it to promote their products in different ways, which, to be honest, is just as seedy, if not even worse. But, it's kind of acknowledged that Michael Weber is new guy at this point. But what this scandal exposed was a deeper issue in magic, crediting, providence in the digital age, forums, PDFs, blogs. Once you publish something online, it lives forever. And when two versions of the same routine appear years apart, the community demanded an answer. And here's the thing. I could have backed down, and many times I have backed down. In this case, I chose not to back down because I felt I was in the right, and I still do to this day, and it all played out absolutely fine. But the Weber and New Guy controversy really shook people's trust, because it was like, well, hang on a minute. If it's so easy for one of the best named creators in Magic to create this sock puppet account, like, what can we trust on forums? What can't we trust? Like, for me, I am who I am. I am absolutely massively flawed, as we're going to say in the final thing on this list. I'm absolutely 100% flawed, but I'm never going to hide behind a pseudonym. I am who I say I am. I am very, very proud of my opinions. I'm very proud of everything I say. And you might disagree with me, and we might get into a back and forth online. That's absolutely fine. But at no point am I going to pretend to be something else or somebody else. Yeah, I mean, I would say that in the magic world, this was one of the biggest scandals, but not the biggest. I think the biggest is the one that's a position number one. So finally, number one, the biggest scandal in magic history, and for me personally at least, definitely my biggest scandal was the release of Red. So this happened back in about 2012, 2013, something like that. And I was riding high at this point. I was a co-host of the Wizard Product Review. I'd released lots of magic at this point, and everything had gone really well. And I was, I never forget when me and Dave Penn went over to Magic Live for the first time, and it was almost like we were rock stars. It was crazy. And then I put out a trick called Red, and almost immediately magicians pointed out that it was too close to a Bob King effect called New Wave Prediction. And they weren't wrong. The forums exploded. The blogs tore into me. There were threads on the Genie forum. There were threads on the Magic Cafe. They're still there now. And there were posts and videos on sites. I'll never forget the weekly magic failure. Do you remember those guy? That guy? Oh, he really ripped into me with numerous videos. The reaction was brutal. Now, here's the honesty. I didn't do enough research. I didn't check the history as carefully as I should have. I genuinely thought this was mine. Even though it wasn't, I actually said when this whole thing came out, I was like, I don't understand what happens. This is mine. I must have made a mistake. And then somebody brought up a post that I'd done on Magic Bunny from like years before, like 2004, 2005, when there was a thread about your favorite trick, and I'd put in number one, New Wave Prediction, which is effectively what Red was. It was Bob King's New Wave Prediction. And I was like, geez, I don't even remember saying that. And I've questioned this so much over the years. I've questioned what I did, what I didn't do. Bottom line is I ended up releasing something that was identical to a pre-existing trick, and that was my mistake. I take full responsibility for it. And the community, understandably, gave me a lot of shit. In fact, and I think one of the reasons was I was the guy on the Wizard Product Review that was calling people out on stuff like this. I was the one that was going, how dare you not credit this? This is this person's move. Everyone knows I've got a pretty good encyclopedic knowledge of moves and tricks and so on and so forth. So when I was the guy that was the one that screwed up in such a public fashion, in such an open and shut way, everyone came down on me, and fair enough. The fallout was so bad that I left the Wizard Product Review. I left the Magic community. I stepped away from the community. I couldn't stand it anymore. I was getting a lot of shit. And it coincided with Ryland being born, and it coincided with me wanting to focus on other stuff. I wanted to focus on performing. I didn't really want to be involved in the community anymore. I'd been in this community at a very high level for a very long time. I wanted to step away. I stopped creating for other people. I just created for myself. I stopped releasing magic. I stopped going to magic conventions. I stopped going to magic clubs. I stopped engaging in the community, and I just focused on my family, and I focused on my business. And the truth is, I was embarrassed. I'd let people down. I'd let David Penn down. I'd let World Magic Shop down. I'd completely and totally, irreparably damaged my reputation. And I never thought I would come back to the community. So why am I including this in the list of scandals alongside people like Uri Geller and the Masked Magician? Because if I'm going to talk about ethics and accountability in magic, we can't just talk about other people's mistakes. We have to talk about our own as well. I firmly believe, and it's took me years to get to this point, and I've talked about this before on this channel, that it's absolutely fine to fail as long as you fail forwards. It's absolutely fine to make mistakes as long as we learn from those mistakes. The Red scandal, well, it taught me my hardest lesson of my career, that crediting matters, history matters, and if you don't do the work to get it right, you're going to be held accountable. But it was painful. It was painful. I was really upset because I love magic. I love the community. Stepping away was one of the hardest things that I did, but it honestly made me a better creator. It made me double and triple check my ideas. It made me take crediting seriously, and it made me determined to never make that mistake again. And you know what? Looking back, me leaving the magic community was the best thing that ever happened to me. It allowed me to build, a business that I wouldn't have had time to do if I'd stayed in the community. It allowed me time to refocus as a creator and create for myself as opposed to other people. It allowed me to focus on my family and, how important Ryland and Thea are to me and, how proud I am of what they're achieving right now. All of that wouldn't have happened if I'd stayed in the community. So yes, Red belongs on this list. Not because it was the biggest scandal the world has ever seen, but because for me, it was a turning point. It was the moment that I realized that in magic, ethics matter as much as methods. What you do and what you say and how genuine you are is the most important thing. And you know what? I know that certain people don't like me. I've heard a million times that people will turn around to me and say, I'm Marmite. You either love Craig or you hate Craig. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. All I can do is go out and put content out all of the time, as much content as I can that I genuinely hope helps people. That's all I can do, and I can do it to the best of my ability. And that's all I need to do, right? I just need to go out and I just need to prove myself every single day. But yeah, Red. Probably my biggest scandal I've ever had. So there you have it, 5 of the biggest scandals in magic history. The Masked Magician exposing secrets on primetime television. Uri Geller and James Randi battling it out in court. Chung Ling Su's tragic death revealing his true identity. The mysterious case of Michael Weber and New Guy, and my own scandal with Red. These stories all remind us of something. Magic isn't just about tricks, it's about trust, it's about credit, it's about respect for the art, respect for creators, respect for the people that buy those creations, respect for the community and for the audiences who believe what we do. Now it's over to you. Which of these scandals do you think had the biggest impact on magic? Are there any that I missed that you think deserve to be in the top 5? Should I do another list? And more importantly, what lessons do you think magicians should take from these stories? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, even if it's just a thumbs up, whatever you want to do. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and join the Netrix. It's my online streaming platform for magicians, and you can get access immediately. Outside of that, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. My name's Craig, and this is Magic TV.